The St. Louis Blues enter tonight's game against the Pittsburgh Penguins after a 4-day break with a chance to pull even with the Calgary Flames and the Vancouver Canucks in a wild card race that separates the three teams out by only 2 points here in the standings. So much here on the line. St. Louis turn to Jordan Binnington here between the pipes. Welcome to Sports Hub STL Blues post-game show. I'm Mike Meyer. Joining me tonight here is the man, the myth, the legend, Thomas Welch. Tommy, how you doing tonight?
I've been better, Mike. I've been better. It feels like, first of all, that was a fantastic intro you just had. I felt like I was at the IMAX watching a cinematic movie. At the same time, it felt like a funeral. Like, I genuinely feel like we're having hey guys, thank you all for coming. We just wanted to say some kind words about the St. Louis Blues before we, send them off into the sunset or send our family dog off onto the Rainbow Road. It could be better right now,
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
tough to see the bright side after losing to a Penguins team that has not had a successful season, not had a successful last 10 games. I mean, Tristan Jarry was getting minutes in the AHL for a lot this season, and he comes back. Obviously, he had his last game, he did good. But this game against the Blues, it didn't feel like he was standing on top of his head. Like, he was making saves, obviously, but it's tough. It's tough to see the bright side right now. That's for sure.
Yeah, for whatever reason, he has the kryptonite here against the Blues, but we'll dive here into that. The Blues came into this one here on a hot streak, 7-1-2 in their last 10. But after that 4-day break, I think the biggest question coming into it was the momentum going to carry over, or was their time off going to be able to kill the rhythm? So looking here at this game, Pittsburgh's been struggling, sitting 8th in the Metro, 26-31-10, while the Blues were 31-27-7. They had a chance again to pull even, come within, tied at that point in time here with Vancouver and Calgary. They turned to Jordan Binnington, 20-20-4 with a 2.79 goals against and an 8.99 save percentage. Right away, the Blues found themselves in an all too familiar spot. For the 9th time this season, the Blues allowed a goal on the first shot. This time it was Ryan Graves getting his first goal in 73 games. And it's not the start that you want to be able to see to shake off some rust here from that. So, but to their credit, the Blues didn't fold. They generated plenty of shots, putting 16 shots here within the first period. Tommy, how'd you see this first period here for the Blues? What were your thoughts here after the first 20?
Well, yeah, it was like domination. It looked like every time the Penguins got around the puck and the Blues got their stick in there, they panicked. And they were coughing up the puck left and right. So at the end of the first period, I don't know, the shots were like 20-5 in the Blues' favor. So I'm like, dude, we're not wavering. Like, we're still controlling this game. The Penguins are, they're a struggling team this season. Like, the Blues have been red hot. They've taken down a lot bigger giants than the Penguins and gotten scored on first against them too. So I wasn't worried. I honestly wasn't worried until the final whistle blew. Like, it felt like the Blues controlled the majority of the game. It's just, you get a couple soft goals on Binnington. Right. That's frustrating. But at the end of the day, like, it happens. And to his credit, Jordan Binnington has, at times for the majority of the season, I would say, has carried this team and dragged them into victories that they probably most likely didn't deserve. We heard from Doug Armstrong just recently. He was like, yeah, it feels great right now because the team is not outscoring other teams. They're beating teams. Like, in terms of the stat sheet, in terms of puck possession, shots on goal, all the metrics that you look at to see like the deserve to win-o-meter, and all of that stuff. Like, the Blues since the break have dominated teams, or at least with playoff teams been neck and neck with them and deserved these wins, right? And I think Jordan Binnington has been a big part of that. But when Jordan Binnington's not on his game and lets in 2 muffins or 3 whatever it is, right? He lets in 4 goals on like 15 shots. It's not a great day at the office for him. But you're a team and you're trying to be a playoff team. You got a band around him. You got to, put your boots on and go to work. And for the Blues, like, all the metrics are there for them to win. If you would have told me that to guess the score at the end of the first period, I would have said, like, oh, it looks like the Blues are probably winning 3-0 based off of all of these underlying analytics, and they were down 1-0. So sometimes it's puck just bounce your way, but it's difficult to watch from the Blues perspective and from a fan perspective, because it does feel like you're just letting a playoff like appearance slip through your fingers when you've got one of the weakest strength of schedules left out among all these teams that are jostling for position with a wild card.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and Rob, as he says here in the chat, and I fully agree here with him. I'm a huge Binnington fan, but this game was on him. 3 goals he gave up were horrible, and we'll go be able to keep breaking those down here. I think one of the big bright spots here, especially of this first period, the defense was heavily involved offensively again. We've talked throughout the season here right now. The activation here, like from this D-core, especially with Montgomery, was no different here tonight on how active that they've been. Broberg led the Blues with 4 shots on goal in the first period alone. Tucker with 3 shots. He had 6 total shot attempts, 2 hits. And I love this here coming from a third pairing guy who was brought up here from the AHL, and his willingness to just get down low, contribute offensively, but then also still be defensively responsible. I love to be able to see that. So I don't want to dwell too much here on the first period. I want to be able to get here into the second, because that's where a majority, I think, of our frustration here starts to come into. Once again, the Blues again come out of the intermission and they give up the early goal. This one just 2 minutes in. Connor Timmins, who again isn't known for his goal scoring, gets that one that sneaks through. I couldn't really tell. It may, like, the camera angles, you can be able to see one thing and maybe it looks like you're like another. It kind of looks like Nick Leddy may have partially screened Binnington on that play unintentionally. And maybe I'm just trying to give Binnington a little bit of extra credit. To you, is this bad puck luck, or are these early period goals becoming a real issue for the Blues defensively, even when every single shift is so critical at this point of the season?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is this game specifically has been the most eye-opening for me in the absence of Colton Parayko, right? And it's not because of the fact that it's a Penguins team scoring goals against a team that really should be head and shoulders above them and where they are, but it's the way that they're scoring the goals in and around the net and that net front presence. I mean, Colton Parayko is a huge guy, and he's done a fantastic job this year of creating goals and putting the puck in the back of the net. But at that same rate, I think he's also done just as much of an incredible job clearing that net front. And with him gone now, like when he's not on the ice and you've got Nick Leddy there, like Nick Leddy's a great skater. He's a great puck mover. I don't think he's as gifted as clearing the front of the net. And so the Penguins kind of took advantage of that. I mean, I felt like 3 of their goals came directly from just making it difficult on Jordan Binnington, getting guys in front of his eyes, or getting either the stick on the puck and tipping it in, or at least waving it in front to make it more difficult so he doesn't know where it's going. But I think with the way that the Blues are kind of structured right now, like that needs to be a focus for them. Like, okay, not just how are they going to make up the minutes for Colton Parayko and how are they all going to contribute offensively, but how are they going to make up in that department, because that is such a kind of niche thing that he has been so good at this season. Like, you just have to have a collective mindset that we're going to be tough in that crease regardless of who we're. I mean, you put Nathan Walker in there. I mean, he's a fiery guy anyways, but he's small. Like, all those guys got to go to war in that crease, because I think that's sometimes the only way that these teams can beat Binnington. And we saw it tonight. Like, it was just effective against him. So I think for me, that was the biggest eye-opening in the absence of Colton Parayko so far, was tonight. And it was just, you saw the result. It sucks.
It's kind of ironic here too. Up to this point in time here, like in the game itself, one of the highest scoring defensive groups here in the league is getting shut down. Meanwhile, it's Pittsburgh's blue liners who are the ones who are getting on the board. The Blues have been the team who have been heavily relying upon their defense actually for offensive production. So I want to be able to turn the tides here really fast. In your opinion, like how critical has this defensive group's offensive contributions been this season?
Well, I think since the Four Nations break, like we've really seen an uptick in all of the defensemen like jumping into the play and creating havoc. And I think that has helped open up the game for forwards. Like we've seen the almost immediate success after the break with Zachary Bolduc, who's just been on an absolute tear, was getting first line minutes tonight with Robert Thomas, I think, after Jim Montgomery switched the lines around. Obviously had a goal on the power play, which is going to be his bread and butter for the NHL for years to come. Kind of helps that there was no one in the same zip code as him, but at the same time, you still got to put the puck in the back of the net. But like I said, I think the jumping up into the play with the defenseman, calling back to 2019 and the success that this team has had doing that exact same thing, I think they've really emphasized that coming out of the Four Nations break, and it's opened up play for everyone, not just the defenseman, but it's also tapped into, we've talked about it on here before, but we've got some insane skaters on the back end, and some guys with great size too. And when you get those guys galloping, it's hard to pull them down. Like Tyler Tucker, it falls into that category, but Torpachenko does as well. And we saw a highlight reel goal from him going east to coast, just like the most. So I think, like I said, all of that opens things up for the entire offense, not just for the defense, but jumping up into the play and creating havoc, I think, has been almost their bread and butter since coming back from Four Nations.
Absolutely. You are listening here to the Sports Hub STL post-game show, which is, of course, brought to you by Hot Shots. All the games, all the time. Proud sponsor here of all post-game shows here on Sports Hub STL. I want to be able to continue here with the second period here again. Finally, the Blues got on the board with their 24th shot of the game. And of course, it's Zachary Bolduc who breaks through. Buchnevich, for those who didn't be able to see it, Buchnevich had a good play here in order to be able to get the puck here behind the net, passes it here to Thomas. Thomas with a short pass behind the net, backhands it here to Bolduc, who just buries it with his 12th goal here of the season. This gives him points in 3 straight, 3 goals in his last 6, and I believe it was 6 goals in his last 8 games. How big has Bolduc's emergence been for this team? And is he starting to carve out a real role for himself in this lineup?
Yeah, I think definitely. And I think the way that he's producing right now, like, it makes total sense. Like, if you would have asked me at the beginning of this season, like, do you think Zachary Bolduc is going to see time on the ice with Robert Thomas on the same line as him this season? I'd be like, that's a long shot. I don't know about that. Like,
for sure,
he's still getting his feet wet, but with the way that he's playing right now, you're like, yeah, it's a no-brainer. He's on fire. So it's just keeping that guy hot, and while he's so young, I think is crucial. And it's kind of what we saw with Jake Neighbors last year too. Like, just keep the ball rolling, keep feeding him, and keep that confidence there, because that's so crucial for these young guys as they come into the league. It's like, find something you're good at and just keep hammering it. And he's doing that by filling the back of the net. It's gorgeous.
Yeah. And we're starting to see some of the offensive production, the shot that makes him so lethal, the shot that gave him 50 goals in the QMJHL here in the junior leagues. And I think one of the things that the Blues here have been looking for, and I think just one of the things that is just going to be slowly but surely coming along here at the NHL level. Rob makes a good point here. Is it me, or have you noticed the last 2 games Thomas trying really hard to set up Buchnevich instead of shooting? I think Thomas has done a great job here providing offensive contributions, especially lighting the lamp here this season. But I have noticed that he's gotten a little bit more passive. What do you think?
I think that I'm going to try to phrase this without completely. I feel like Buchnevich, since he went on that, was it a point streak? I think he's kind of gone cold, and you can kind of see him at times get frustrated, fumble pucks, hang his head. So if I'm Robert Thomas, I'm trying to lead this team to a playoff run, right? Like, I need all of my guys going, but specifically like Pavel Buchnevich, we've seen in his contract years and years before, even years with the Rangers, like when that guy's firing on all cylinders, he's a menace in all 3 zones, like back check, forecheck, putting the puck in the back of the net, power play, like everywhere. He's a phenom, right? And I don't think we're seeing that player right now. And I think Rob, subconsciously or consciously, is trying to get that player out of him and like raise the level of play, because he knows that he's capable of it. I think all of us in St. Louis know he's capable of it. And like I said, this is like, even since the Four Nations break, he went on that point streak, and he's just kind of gone cold since then. It's a small sample size, so it's easy to get a guy going again like that. It was like, dude, we just saw you crushing it. Just start crushing it again. Like, throw some pucks on net. It's going to find the back of the net, and then you're going to feel a whole lot better and get that confidence like we talk about. So I think it's less about the focus of Robert Thomas and is he trying to do too much and is he gripping the stick a little bit too hard, but it's more of trying to raise the play of Pavel Buchnevich so that they can all make a push for the playoffs, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. And stat here from Bolduc, third in goals here among rookies since November 25th. He's unfortunately, he's not going to get Calder votes because there's too many good rookies right now, like actual point producing rookies. But it's kind of upsetting though to know that such a well-rounded player, I think, in Zachary Bolduc. And I say that, with a grain of salt, there's a lot of really good, well-rounded rookies who are playing right now. But Bolduc, I think, has really shown that he's improved his one-way offensive abilities and really just rounded out his game here extremely well here so far. So,
yeah, to your point on that, he's third in goals, obviously, which is crazy given names like Michkov and Celebrini in the same mix, right? But to the exact point that you were talking about and how well-rounded he is, he's first in plus minus. And I think that's crucial for this Blues team, specifically in a playoff run, because we've seen guys like Jordan Kyrou come in, right, that have that offensive capability, that have that ability to drive a play at elite levels, right? But when you're coming in that young, it's easy to be like, hey, I'm good at scoring goals. I'm good at passing the puck. Like, I'm not good at banging bodies. I'm not good at blocking shots. So I'm going to do, what's made me money in the past and what's been successful for me. The Blues aren't built that way for anybody, really. And we've seen it with Jordan Kyrou specifically this year. Like, he's got one of the best plus minuses on the team. It's been a conscious shift for him to be less of a liability defensively, but also more of an asset. Like, with a guy with his speed, if you can create constant turnovers on a guy, get a stick check going the other way and get an odd man rush or a B way on your own, like, you got a one-man break going in Jordan Kyrou. So the more that he builds that game, the more lethal he can be. And I think we're seeing that exact mold early with Zachary Bolduc. Now, it helps that he's a little bit bigger than Kyrou. And I think, he's like banging bodies. He's going out there and hitting people, which is not a part of Jordan Kyrou's game. But when you're paying a guy $8 million and he's scoring up near 40 goals a season, you don't necessarily want him to be leading the team in hits either. So it's all about play style. It's all about where you fit on this team. Zachary Bolduc said, I want to come in and be an asset to this team. However that is, if I'm not filling the back of the net, I got to find something to do. And he's done it and paying dividends for this team right now and trying to drag them to a playoff spot. And it's gorgeous to see from a guy that young that has so much potential, like you said, that had so much success in the QMJHL.
Yeah. And to be fair, if this is a guy who, let's say that, Zachary Bolduc ends up being just like a one-trick pony. As long as he's good at that one trick, I don't care. If you're putting in 25, 30 goals here at this point, that's all I care about. So, let's help him keep putting those pucks in the back of the net. And any bit of defensive awareness that he's going to be able to bring here is only a plus. So let's keep it going here. So the Blues did break a little bit here, unfortunately, at the end of the second period. Chris Letang, he took a cross-checking penalty here with 7.8 seconds left. Gives the Blues here a bit of a break at that time. Carry most of their power play here over into the third period. They were outshooting Pittsburgh 28-17, but found themselves down 3-1. Again, power play here to be able to start the third period. And this time it was the Blues getting the fast start. 1:26 in, Dylan Holloway with an absolute rocket of a one-timer here from the left faceoff dot for his 21st of the season. 2 power play goals here tonight. How much has special teams helped to keep the team here in games lately?
Yeah, I think it has to, right? Anytime you go a goal down early, specifically in this game, but in games past too, like, it can easily get out of hand with power plays going the other way and a penalty kill that we saw had problems against the Dallas Stars. So I think that has to be a point of focus for this team, right? It's not just, obviously on the penalty kill, but on the power plays, taking advantage of those opportunities to where you can create a difference in a game, right? And obviously with an extra man on the ice or subtracting a man on the ice, either way, like, those are crucial moments for this team specifically. when push comes to shove. I mean, we're talking like this game very well could have put the nail in the coffin on their playoff hopes. Fingers crossed it doesn't, but like every game right now is crucial for this team. Their back's up against the wall, and you got to be playing playoff style hockey. So if you've got an area, a weakness that any team can exploit, like the Penguins did tonight with the net front presence, penalty kill can obviously do that, but power play can be too. Like if no team is ever scared of you scoring on the power play, anytime you get an odd man rush or a breakaway, they're just going to hammer you and be like, okay, go 5-on-4 and then grip the stick too tight, and then we'll just fight it off for 2 minutes, and then it'll be like nothing happened. So you almost have to play like perfect hockey. And it's tough because, you know, the Blues are playing a lot of hockey right now. They obviously had a break in this last stretch, but you got to do what you got to do. And I still think this team is capable of making the playoffs, but it's in those dire moments that they have to show up and they have to perform. Whether it's Binnington, whether it's the penalty kill, whether it's the power play, which did pretty well tonight. Like something's got to carry you to victory. It just wasn't in the cards tonight, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Yep. And I'm trying to be mindful here. We will be also hosting the, not us here too. We will, Sports Hub will also be hosting the post game here for the Mizzou game. They have about 2 minutes left here to go. So I want to be mindful here of the time here as well. Just be able to recap here. Binnington gets pulled here about 12 and a half minutes left here after Ricard Raquel scores his 30th here of the season. Binnington, unfortunately, you know, I mean, again, I don't know if this was a coaching decision or just like a try to be a spark here for the team itself. I like the decision because Binnington just did not look sharp here tonight. I really, really liked Hofer coming in. He did look sharp, not really tested overly much. But, you know, I did like his stick play that he had. There was a couple different times where Pittsburgh got in close and you saw him just, you know, poking his stick away and try to just defend, you know, his crease here just as much as possible at that point in time. And it wasn't that much longer after, you know, the Blues are down 4-2 here at that point in time. And I don't know, whatever the message was, Alexei Toropchenko heard it loud and clear because he went, as you said, coast to coast, splitting the defense, burying a gorgeous goal that looks like it should belong on ESPN's top 10. He's going to still be a bottom six forward here for the Blues moving forward. He just is. But he's a guy who, in my opinion, he has found his way into a regular spot here in this lineup. He's no longer just like an extra player who kind of splits time here every now and then. Alexei Toropchenko is turning into a difference maker here, like in the bottom six. What are you seeing here out of him? Do you think that like this is as high as we see him like with this ceiling? I know the depth chart's a little bit against him in that manner, but do you see any more like out of his game coming here at this point?
Well, I made comparisons on Twitter to Tage Thompson on that goal specifically. So I think it's safe to say that my opinions of Alexei Toropchenko are fairly high. Now, I will say that with some caveats, right? Obviously, he is not, his ceiling is not as high as Tage Thompson's is. It's the majority of that comparison is based off of the size. They're both just 6'6" monsters that play with speed and can dangle you if you're not, you know, if you're not paying attention well enough. I think Tage Thompson has proven that he's a little bit better at that at this point in his career, but that's not to say that Toropchenko could potentially get there someday. It's just less likely. But I think the impact that we're seeing Toropchenko make right now, the best comparison for that really in recent years with the St. Louis Blues is Ivan Barbashev. Like he's a guy that really plays bottom 6 minutes, but he's creating energy by banging bodies. And when I say banging bodies, Ivan Barbashev buried people. I don't know if Toropchenko's going into hits like that, but his body is big enough. It probably feels like you get hit by a train when he's running you, right? But then we go, he can, on the flip side, pull a hybrid move, go coast to coast, literally look like Tage Thompson pulling a highlight reel goal and roof it into the back of the net like it's nobody's business. So I think the ability to kind of provide that value in multiple facets of the game, whether it's banging bodies, whether it's blocking shots, whether it's playmaking, whether it's, you know, whatever it is, whether it's scoring goals. I think he provides energy wherever you slot him on the lineup. And because of that, he's able to play on any line, which is I mean, just so crucial for this Blues team. And it's that has been their bread and butter too. Like getting guys that are versatile. Braden Shen's a good example. Like all these guys that can play multiple positions and up and down your roster, I think is the key to success for this Blues team, not just this season, but really every year, because they're not big ball players in free agency. You're really like, I would love to say right now for clicks and hot takes that, oh, the Blues are going to go get Mitch Marner. But the reality is like, that's probably not going to happen because Mitch Marner probably doesn't want to play in St. Louis, and Doug Armstrong doesn't want to pay him the money. So it's just all of those things combined, I think, make Toropchenko a crucial player for this team. But players like him too. A guy like Nathan Walker, I think, still leads this team in hits, which is crazy. He leads Braden Shen by like 40 hits the last time I checked. The captain of your team, the guy that's, dropping the gloves every chance he gets to, stick up for his teammates. The guy that's a grizzled veteran that's known for being an enforcer. Nathan Walker's like, hey, I'm 5'6", and I'll beat the brakes off of you. Like, it's just awesome to see. And it's fun hockey, but it's different hockey because a lot of the league is built differently than the Blues are. So it's awesome.
Absolutely. And as we're finishing up here, we got a couple of good comments here. Just a reminder again that the post-game show here is brought to you by Hot Shots. All the games, all the time. Proud sponsor here of the post-game show here, Hot Shots. So another comment here, as you mentioned here, Armstrong didn't want to be able to pay him. You made that comment here. When it comes to first-year Blues players, Holloway and Broberg, we've already seen it here. I want to deviate here from the game here just for a brief minute. Do you extend them right away? Because at this point, I think most fans are saying, give them 8 years. Just extend, just lock them up long term, whatever they want right now. The cap's going up. Take advantage of it and just do it right now.
I think the one thing, if you're Doug Armstrong, right, and you're looking at this, it's easy to say, like, get caught up in like, wow, I really cooked the Oilers with that offer sheet. These guys are paying dividends right now. But it's also at the same rate easy to be like, that being said, like, we have a lot of contracts on this team that if I wanted to blow up this roster right now, it would still be extremely difficult because of the no trade clauses and how much money everybody makes and stuff like that. So I think if I'm Doug Armstrong, like, obviously you would love to lock these guys up long term, but at the same time, I think you have to balance that with being cautious because of what has happened with your contract negotiations in the past. I mean, you also kind of burned yourself with Pietrangelo. That, like, you could make the argument that, David Perron probably should have stayed, although his stats are kind of lackluster in Ottawa this year, but I know that he's been dealing with a whole bunch of stuff. So I don't know if that's a good sample size, and then, trading guys out of here like Ryan O'Reilly and Barbashev and Noah Chari, and like, there's a whole lot of moving parts there, right? But I think going into it cautiously is the right play for Doug Armstrong right now, especially because you were aggressive with Kyrou and Robert Thomas, right? And I feel like both of those guys are on great deals considering how much they produce and what they mean to this team. And this fan base will still try to burn Doug Armstrong at the stake and be like, you can't pay these guys $8 million. Meanwhile, there's guys across the league that are signing for 9, 10 that probably don't have the same impact as both of them do. So it's really damned if you do, damned if you don't. But in my opinion, I would assume that Doug Armstrong would be a little bit cautious.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's be able to wrap up here tonight. I know that the Mizzou game here is going to be wrapping up here shortly. They're under a minute here. Let's be able to go. Mizzou up 77-71 here for those who are interested. So unfortunately, the Blues did end up losing here this game. They Pittsburgh here outblocked them, 20-9. They dominated them here on the faceoff, 63-37 here, I believe was the final here on those
I think
regards.
That was the difference in the game too, because really, like, we controlled, like, it felt like we dominated them on the forecheck and the back check and puck battles and everything. But I mean, when they're breaking out of when they're breaking out of the defensive zone, and we can't keep the press on there. When they keep the press on in the offensive zone, I think it led directly to one of their goals. That's a tough day at the office. And we talked about how successful the Blues have been from the faceoff dot and why it's made such a difference for them. But I mean, that's almost a 60-40 split in favor of the Penguins. So, and obviously Sidney Crosby is pretty good from the faceoff dot. So that weighs into it too, but it shouldn't be that heavily tilted in their favor.
Absolutely. All right. So the Blues play next here over the weekend. They have another back-to-back again here at this point. They play Minnesota at Minnesota here on Saturday. They're back home here against Anaheim. Tommy, who do you start here in net?
Oh, man. Versus Minnesota?
Versus Minnesota. Who do you start?
I gotta go back to Binner. I mean, especially like I just have to. He's your guy, right? Like if you're gonna ride or die with Jordan Binnington, I mean, and he's the guy that, I mean, basically carried you to a Stanley Cup too, right? Like you got to at least, like, I will say, like, you could keep the leash short on him, right? If he lets in 2 muffins again, like, let's just go back to Hofer. And I know that this Blues team is not going to go into Minnesota and be like, we're just going to score 2. We're going to expect to win like 2-1. Like that hasn't been a recipe for success for them all season long. So if Binner lets in 2 softies, that's fine. Put in Hofer. Like, I agree with that. But I think it's Binner's net until it's proven otherwise. And 1 game sample size, especially given the resume that he's put together, not even just since 4 Nations, but in 4 Nations, like, I got to go back to my guy. He's a dog.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I think you need to be able to go back to Binnington. Hofer has shown a lot of really, really strong play, but I think as your team, see, I'm almost talking myself here out of it. As you are going into the second here of back-to-backs, you're traveling. Do you want your stronger goaltender here on the back end against I never like to be able to say lesser team, but against a lower in the standings team?
Mm-hmm.
Granted, that game on Sunday will likely be a battle of the backups here at that point in time. But man, it would be really interesting if they chose to be able to go with Hofer here against Minnesota and then turn back to Binnington here at that point in time to be able to try and give themselves a little bit of an extra edge when they need the points.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a bad move either way.
What combination do you think gives you the best chance to win both games? Because, like, I wouldn't say it's crucial to win both games, but especially with this loss, like, you need to win both games because it'll help you a lot more than splitting them, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All the points here are crucial here at this point in time of the year. So we will be able to see. Tommy, any final thoughts here before we wrap up here tonight?
Yeah, actually, I have a big one because, okay, so I watch this podcast all the time, and the host does like pinky bets at the beginning of the season where he puts the tip of his pinky on the line, saying that this team for sure will not win the Super Bowl, right? I'm going to do something like that right now. So for clipping or chat, you can write it down. Mike, you can hold me accountable. I do think that this game specifically was the funeral for the St. Louis Blues on the season, right? Like, it's just an uphill battle. Like, I'll be shocked if they make the playoffs because, I mean, you have to go on a crazy stretch. You'd have to do like what the Cardinals did in like 2011, just absolutely come out of nowhere and just blow people away and play completely different than the way that you did prior in the season, which does look like the Blues are doing right now. That being said, if this Blues team makes the playoffs, I'm saying this today, March 13th, 2025, I will shave my head bald like Jim Montgomery. Live on chat on Sports Hub STL. The only place you'll be able to see it is on this YouTube channel. Write it down, lock it in. I'm putting my hair on the line. I'm putting my Letty on the line. I will be a cue ball for this team if they prove me wrong and squeak into the playoffs in a wild card spot. There it is.
That's a clippable moment right there for you. That's a clippable moment. So, all right, Tommy, I appreciate the time. Everybody, appreciate all the chat here, activity. Let's go Blues. Here again, this was a podcast here brought to you by Hot Shots Sports Bar and Grill. If you're in St. Louis, absolutely go by Hot Shots. Grab yourself here a seat. Grab yourself a cold one, whatever it may end up being here. Watch a game. Stay and enjoy yourself. Hot Shots Sports Bar and Grill. Tommy, it was a lot of fun. Guys, we thank you here so much.